Once they go 2-0 up, you think, well, this could be 4 or 5. Genuinely, I thought Liverpool could go on and get a real statement result defensively. They're a little bit of a shambles, Liverpool.
Well, Newcastle should never have really been in the game once Gordon was sent off.
Gordon's tackle was a shocker. That was one of those ones where he's let his team down there.
The hostility, the atmosphere, obviously the furore surrounding Liverpool's pursuit of Alexander Isak did get to Newcastle. But once they went down to 10 men, there was this defiance about them that they weren't going to crumble.
And at 2-2, I thought there's only one winner here, and it definitely wasn't Liverpool.
These are the moments that you dream of as a kid. And the fact that he's come on and scored for Liverpool at 16 years old at St James's Park to score the winner, I can't even imagine. I bet he didn't even sleep last night.
This is a kid who hasn't even signed a pro contract yet.
Clearly, he is very highly rated, and I think he's going to be in and around it throughout the course of the season. And they needed him, didn't they? Well, I certainly think they'll bid again. Isak obviously still wants to move. And just as we get nearer the deadline, I still think there's a twist in this saga.
If you start going on strike for your team, I don't want anyone at my club that doesn't want to be there. I don't care who it is.
It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface. The former England international Lianne Sanderson is here, and talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook. I'm sitting across from St James's Park. Lianne, where are you in the world?
I'm in Ibiza actually on my mini moon, and I'm giving my time to you guys. Couldn't think of anything better. Not as glamorous as St James's Park, but yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, Ibiza, partying away. We know what you're all about. Talking of party animals, the Crookmeister is here. I noticed you were in the pub again last night. I hope you watched the game, but is there a few managers in the Last Chance Saloon already as well? It's only 2 games in, but Nuno has been the subject of a lot of discussion. Any updates on that?
I was in the pub winning the quiz, by the way, but obviously keeping a keen eye on the football as well. I think there's going to be a meeting this week between Nuno and Evangelos Marinakis. Forrester encouraged, I'm told, by the fact he was a little bit more consolatory, Nuno, before and after that game on Sunday at Crystal Palace. Certainly more so than he was in the presser on Friday when he came out with them bombshell comments. But I think this can still go either way because obviously Marinakis is a very unpredictable chairman.
Well, if you're so good at winning quizzes, maybe you can help Manchester United solve a few conundrums later in the podcast. Lianne, that situation with Nuno Espirito Santo is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a unique situation, to be honest, Sam. And it's not a good one, is it? I mean, Nottingham Forest, when they got all those players in a couple of windows ago, 22 players they signed, and it kind of took a little while to come into fruition. But I just think when the chairman, Marinakis, went on the pitch, you know, those types of scenes, those things need to be kept behind closed doors. And I think the fans will be absolutely gutted if Nuno ends up leaving because what he's done to that club is similar to what he did at Wolves. Yes, he didn't work out at Tottenham, but they're doing bits, aren't they? They're signing players. You know, Hudson-Odoi's doing well, Chris Wood's doing well. They kept Morgan Gibbs-White, which is fantastic because it looked like he was going to move on. So you can see the progression they made last year. That place was absolutely rocking when they were at home. So I think it's a really poor situation and I hope it gets resolved. And I do hope that Nuno stays there because they're doing a really good job. And I think if they lost him, the wheels could start to fall off again at Forest.
Fascinating. You talk about them signing players. That's the big issue, isn't it? The fallout between him and Edu, who's recently arrived and has taken a little bit more control in terms of the recruitment. We'll get into that a little bit later on. There's so much to talk about in terms of transfers as well with Crookie. But we've got to start here in the northeast at Newcastle, where the action was hot and the atmosphere was bubbling. Well, what an extraordinary night. Charged atmosphere, stirring comeback, and a finish that was cruel on Liverpool, but wonderful for the kid, Rio Engamoa, a kid that has only just taken his GCSEs. In fact, he's only just got his GCSE results. He's only 17 on Friday. Before we get into it, just take me back to that moment where you were watching it, what it felt like. Did you see it coming, Lianne?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. There's been a lot of talk about this kid, hasn't there? Similar to Max Dowman. And like you saw at the end of the game, when Arne Slot went over to him and said, enjoy this type of moment. And we know that at St James's Park, the away fans were almost in the sky. Do you know what I mean? And you can see the fans that were going absolutely mental. And these are the types of moments like, not that it's the same. When I made my debut at Arsenal when I was 14 and I scored in my first game, I remember coming home and it was on the telly on Sky. And I remember watching it over and over again because like, these are the moments that you dream of as a kid. And the fact that he's come on and scored for Liverpool at 16 years old at St James's Park to score the winner, I can't even imagine. I bet he didn't even sleep last night.
When you watched that back though as a kid and you scored that goal, what did it do to you? What did that goal do to you? Did it give you extra confidence? Did you make you think, crikey, how am I going to get any better from here? How am I going to live up to the expectation that is now coming? Or because you're so young, do you not worry about those things? You're just caught up in the moment. You've got that sort of young person bravado. You're not fazed by it.
I mean, you know what I'm like, Sam. I'm a pretty confident person, and I was always
I
raised
had
that
noticed.
way. But at the same time, like, I had so much respect for my older teammates, the ones that kind of took me under their wing, that every time I got in front of goal, I'd want to pass them the ball. And I remember my manager, Vic Akers, said to me, he brought me into the office, and my mum and daddy said, "You're doing amazing. You're here for a reason. Stop passing the ball when you're in front of goal." And I think for me, I had to go to school the next day. You know, I was playing in FA Cup finals on the bank holiday Monday, and then my mum, I was like, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to go to school." Dad said, "Oh, don't worry, darling, you ain't got to go." Mum was like, "You're going to school." And then I'd have to go to school the next day. So there was like a massive like bring down to reality, but then the teachers used to do it over the tannoy. You know, you had the tannoys and they'd do an announcement to say if you won and all that, and it was lovely, don't get me wrong. But I think for boys and for men it's very different, because I think when you're a footballer, especially for young boys, that is your like identity, isn't it? If you're in school and you knew a boy that played for Arsenal or Chelsea, they'd be like, "Oh, there's so and so plays for Arsenal." So there is that pressure. And I think like I loved it, to be honest, and I never really skipped a beat. I kind of went onwards and upwards after I scored that goal. We lost the game to Fulham, so I didn't really dwell on it too much because my team lost, but it did feel good to like get my first goal. And I think when you're like that age, I mean, these kids now are like 16 years old, similar to when Rooney came through, and now Max Darwin won Yeri last year. Like, it's brilliant, isn't it? And I know there's a lot of talk about should these young boys be coming into the team, and you know, I believe that Arteta, those types of managers on a slot, they wouldn't put him in there if they weren't ready, would they?
Well, it was an amazing debut for Rio Ngamoa, just 16 years of age, showing a class and a confidence and a coolness in front of goal. He becomes Liverpool's youngest ever Premier League goal scorer. John Terry, Chelsea's legendary former captain, led the chorus of people disapproving of Chelsea allowing him to leave and go to Liverpool just over a year or so ago. He described Ngamoa as one of the best prospects he'd ever seen at Cobham, and this is a kid who hasn't even signed a pro contract yet, Crook, but there has been a lot of talk about him for some time. And this is, I mean, listen, if you're his agent, you've just had the best night ever.
Well, certainly he's strengthened his hand in those contract negotiations, but it's not a surprise that he's in and around the first team. He was during pre-season, and I know Arne Slot was impressed with him. In fact, when they sold Luis Diaz, and we got a sort of brief from Liverpool about what they might do next in terms of bringing in a replacement, he was one of the young players they referenced as not wanting to block his development and pathway into the first team squad. So clearly he is very highly rated, and I think he's going to be in and around it throughout the course of the season. And they needed him, didn't they? Because defensively, they were a little bit of a shambles, Liverpool.
Well, Newcastle should never have really been in the game. Once Gordon was sent off, Tonali was injured, Cher went off, Joe Linton went off as well. So how were they, Crook?
You're right. Once the sending off happens, once they go 2-0 up, you think, well, this could be 4 or 5. Genuinely, I thought Liverpool could go on and get a real statement result, but it didn't happen. I think you have to credit Newcastle, who showed a brilliant battling spirit all night. Obviously, in the case of Anthony Gordon, he took that battling spirit too far. And I do think Bruno Guimaraes, while he will have endeared himself to the Newcastle fans with some of the tackles he was making, on a yellow card, he was treading a tightrope at times as well. So I do think the hostility, the atmosphere, obviously the furore surrounding Liverpool's pursuit of Alexander Isak did get to Newcastle. But once they went down to 10 men, there was this defiance about them that they weren't going to crumble. And I think when 11 minutes of added time were put up, it was Liverpool who were concerned that they would end up losing the game, not the other way around. So great credit to them. But I also think, again, you look at Liverpool, we saw it in the Community Shield, we saw it at home to Bournemouth. They're not defensively watertight. They are a team who are going to give away plenty of chances this season, and Newcastle exploited that.
Do you know what? I was obviously commentating, and at 2-2, I thought there's only one winner here, and it definitely wasn't Liverpool. In fact, I was taken by surprise, I think, that Liverpool ended up scoring that winning goal. I don't think anyone saw it coming, certainly not Arne Slot. He was panicking. He spoke to me afterwards and he said, I thought we were going to lose the game, to be honest. But there is that resolve. There is that sort of inner strength that Liverpool have had over the last couple of years where they will turn a difficult situation into a positive one, Lianne. We saw it against Bournemouth. they have got into this habit of giving away chances, but they always seem to have this resolve to come back and get all 3 points.
Yeah, and that's what top teams do, Sam. When you're not playing well, you still find a way to get a result. Arne Slot said in his interview after the game, it wasn't a tactically astute game. It was free flowing. There was a lot of set pieces. They were sitting quite low. They were defending. But like I said, that's what happens when you're a top team and you've got quality. I mean, Ekatike's come in there, not skipped a beat really. Mo Salah doing what Mo Salah does. Konate and Van Dijk. I love Van Dijk still now. I know there's a lot of question marks over him last season and the season before when he came back from his injury. But I just think, Liverpool seem to have this identity. And obviously last year there was a lot of talk about when Jurgen Klopp left, then Arne Slot come in, they did change their type of style that they play and then they win the league, Sam. So, and they've got quality players. I mean, we talk about Kirkes coming there as well. He still hasn't really got going, but no doubt, obviously, he's a top player. But I think Liverpool, they've got different ways of finding a way to win. I mean, like I said, historically over the years when I was growing up, remember these games, 4-3, 4-4, Stan Collymore scoring goals. These games have a lot of goals in them. And for me, I'm okay with games not always being tactically astute because I think football matches have become so boring over the last few years where we're seeing Manchester derbies, it's 0-0, everyone's sitting back and it's no one wants to kind of take any risks. No one's dribbling with the ball, playing out from the back and all teams are starting to look the same. So I'm okay with it not being tactically astute all the time. I'm sure for the managers, they're not.
Yeah, I can imagine Pep Guardiola, Graham Potter, Enzo Maresca watching that game, pulling what little hair they have got left out because it was not a purist football match, was it? It was a scrap. It was living on emotion. It was fueled by passion. It was completely on edge from the minute the whistle blew. And that's what the Premier League does best, isn't it, Crook?
Well, yeah, particularly this fixture. We all remember those iconic games during the Kevin Keegan days, him slumped over the advertising hoardings at Anfield, back-to-back 4-3 results in the game. Even a couple of years ago, opening weekend of the season, there was plenty of drama in that one. So this is a game that usually delivers. And I think we got exactly what we expected. You were like a kid on Christmas Eve when we were hosting on Monday because you were so excited to commentate this game and about what was to come, and it certainly didn't disappoint.
All this was played out with the backdrop of the Alexander Isak saga. We'll get to that in just a second, but they've got an added problem in the fact that Anthony Gordon's now going to be suspended. It was a stupid challenge, Lianne.
Yeah, it was stupid, and I think when you look at the stats of when Newcastle have Isak in the team and when they don't seem to win games when he's not playing. And he is that good. It's a really not a great situation to say the least. I know it divides different people's opinions. The club obviously say one thing, and I don't like this type of stuff playing out in public. But yeah, Gordon's tackle was a shocker, to be honest. And I think to do it so early in the game, and listen, we've all been there. We all do things in games. You get a rush of blood to the head, and then you think, but that was one of those ones where he's let his team down there. He really has. And the Isak situation, it's not good, is it, all round?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, Crook, because you've got more information than most about this. The chairman, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, was there last night. I spoke to Eddie Howe afterwards, and he told me, look, he wanted it over. I asked him whether or not the chairman being there meant that we were going to get a resolution, bearing in mind that when I spoke to Slot, he sort of indicated that, yes, he is interested in Isak. He didn't say it overtly, but I asked him whether or not he fit into that character and category that he suggested Liverpool was still in the market for, and he didn't deny it. So they're going to get this done, aren't they?
Well, I certainly think they'll bid again. We've got 6 days left of the window. I think this match, to use your words from yesterday, was always going to be a line in the sand. I don't think Liverpool were going to antagonise the situation further ahead of a trip to St James's Park by making a bid too close to the game. Isak obviously still wants the move, and you can interpret the chairman being there, and he's not a regular visitor to St James's Park, in two ways. Either he's actively trying to persuade Alexander Isak to reintegrate, and maybe he's going to give him the new contract that he wants, or he's here to negotiate the best possible price for Newcastle, and he'll end up being sold to Liverpool. Ultimately, it will be his call. We know that Eddie Howe wants to keep Isak. I think that's why he's deliberately not thrown him under a bus for effectively going on strike for the last few weeks, because he knows there's an opportunity that maybe he'll be back in the dressing room. And he's their best player, as Lianne says. They're a much better team. They win more football matches. They pick up more points when Isak is available. But yeah, I'm just as we get nearer the deadline, I still think there's a twist in this saga. And I think the fact they bid so much money for Jorgen Strand Larsen, £50 million, and we're expecting them to go in again. Yes, you can say they're trying to replace Callum Wilson. That's a lot of money for a Callum Wilson replacement.
It absolutely is, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I suppose the big thing here is that Newcastle know that it's not just that they're a better team when Alexander Isak is in it. It's that they don't score any goals without him. You know, that is a problem. Yeah, they scored 2 last night, but you were relying on a set piece and you were relying on a long punt through the middle of the pitch and a misjudgment by the Liverpool defence to get those 2 goals. And those goals come with sort of the feral atmosphere of the night. You need a central striker that's going to lead the line, that's going to hold the ball up, that's going to run in behind. They need to get that over the line quickly. They've been looking. We've heard about Strand Larsen. And maybe I just wonder, Crook, that if they can sort of come up with a negotiation with Liverpool that generates them enough money, they will go not only for Strand Larsen and big money, but for Vissa as well and get both snaffled up.
Well, they'll need to, because they have lost Callum Wilson. Obviously, Asula is another possibility, particularly with the suspension that we've already talked about to Anthony Gordon. But there is a fear here that if you're a Newcastle fan, your team end up selling your best player for what, 125 million? I think probably is the most that Liverpool would go to. And then you spend all that money on Johan Wissa and Jorgen Strand Larsen. And with the greatest respect in the world to those 2 players, that's a downgrade for me.
Yeah, but that's the market, right? I know inflation is absolutely ridiculous, Lianne, but this is almost an example of just how mental the market is, because Jorgen Strand Larsen cost £23 million in July. Less than 30 days later, Wolves could double their money or even get 3 times their money. I mean, it's great business, but it shows you, I think, that there is a dearth of strikers in world football that clubs are desperate for.
Yeah, I've said it many times on talkSPORT about the number 9 role becoming obsolete. Like Osimhen, Isak, those types of players are going for these high premiums similar to Gyökeres because they just don't exist anymore. I think this is 10, 15 years ago. You're talking about, Van Nistelrooy, Alan Shearer, Dwight York, Andy Cole, Michael Owen. The list could go on. Do you know what I mean? Players that can put the ball in the back of the net. I think systems have changed as well. So that becomes a thing. Look at Gyökeres trying to fit in with Arsenal. They don't cross the ball into the box. They get down the end and they dribble, don't they? So they're not used to playing with a number 9. I think this overall situation, if Isak goes for 125 mil, I actually think that's a bargain, to be honest. If we're going to look at like other players and how much they've gone for, like the likes of Anthony, which is a whole nother kettle of fish, looking at the likes of Jack Grealish going to City for 100 mil, I think Isak's worth 150 mil, Sam, to be honest, like in this market. And I also think, I saw Thierry Henry saying on Monday Night Football that, I don't know what you think about this, Crookie, like, if he apologises, then the fans will like almost forgive and forget. And like, I don't think that's the situation. I just think like, you don't want to bite your nose off to spite your face, but if you start going on strike for your team, I don't want anyone at my club that doesn't want to be there, but I don't care who it is. And historically over the years, Manchester United did that with Sir Alex Ferguson. Not to go back to those times, but if a player started coming out saying they wanted to leave, they said, see you later then. They weren't like, oh, please come back. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Pep's like that, and so is Thomas Frank. Basically, their attitude is if you don't want to play for the club, then don't play for the club. We won't sign you, or you can leave. But Newcastle are in a situation where they don't hold all the cards because Isak has made it so public that he wants to leave and he wants to leave for Liverpool. There's only one suitor in town who can afford that money. So the negotiation over the fee is going to be difficult. I don't think they'll get 150 million quid. I agree with Lianne, he's worth it, but they'll probably settle 125, 130, I think, and then they have to be judicious about the way they utilise those funds. So where does it leave us then? Okay, so after the weekend, look, we've finished with Liverpool and Newcastle. We've seen Liverpool somehow get 3 points on the board. Tottenham have beaten Manchester City. Arsenal have beaten Leeds 5-0. So where are we in terms of the title contenders? Because I was at City, they're still vulnerable, but Arsenal look very, very good at the back. I mean, they were only playing Leeds United, no disrespect to Leeds United, but, you know, the attack that Arsenal have got should be able to unpick them.
Well, we know a lot more this weekend. You and I are going to be at Anfield, first sort of heavyweight showdown of the season. Liverpool against Arsenal, a ground where Arsenal historically have struggled to pick up victories. But I do think when you look at the vulnerabilities in this Liverpool team, and they are a work in progress, still trying to integrate a lot of the new signings, and I've not been overly impressed by Florian Wirtz so far, by the way, but in terms of Arsenal having the capability to go there, get a goal, and grind out a result, I think they've got a big opportunity, Arsenal, to make a real statement early on. Because if it comes down to who's got the best defence, it's going to be Arsenal. Because everybody else up there looks like they're going to concede goals. They're trying to strengthen that defence with Nkappi, and Jeff Stelling was asking me on breakfast this morning, well, why on earth they need another central defender? Well, he can play at left back as well. Jakub Kiwior is going to Porto. Zinchenko will leave. So this again is Arteta just making sure he's got strength in numbers so that Arsenal's title quest is not derailed by injuries as it was last season. Obviously, the caveat to that is they're going to go into this game this weekend without Saka and Ødegaard, not long-term injuries, but obviously two players when you're going up against the champions that you could do with having in your side.
Well, you mentioned it, that they are yet to concede a goal, and they are going to buy Piero Nkapie. He was part of the Leverkusen team that were unbeaten during that season where they won the league and the cup double. He's a left-sided defender who I've seen play centre-back, left-back and wing-back. And what it is, in relation to what Crook has said about Zinchenko and Kiwior, is an upgrade. It is an upgrade in terms of quality. Calafiori has suffered a number of injuries since joining Arsenal last summer, and if you look back at his history, he never usually plays more than 25 league games over the course of a season, so you do need depth there. And the fact that they've gone in again to get another one over the line shows how much they've backed Mikel Arteta, and they obviously sense that this is a real opportunity for them this season to go on and win the league. Lianne, do you think they can do it?
They have to. To be honest, bringing in Eza, every last 3 years they've got close. But for me, they haven't won a trophy since Mikel Arteta first got there. And I do think they desperately need that. I think the amount of money they've spent, I understand bringing in extra players as well for depth. I don't come from this place where, people saying, the squad's set, why are you getting another player in? Well, if you can get quality in, then get the quality in. I mean, Lewis Skelly hasn't started this season yet, which is quite a surprise, I would say. Quite a surprise. I like Zubimendi. I think he's a decent player. Gyökeres, like I said, I think they're still getting used to playing with a number 9 because they haven't been used to it. Madueke, decent player. Martinelli, I think Madueke and Martinelli will be fighting for that position. But I do think it's almost like Arteta has to deliver now. I like Mikel Arteta, but sometimes it's a bit too much talking. Do you know what I mean, Sam? Like, the season before last, he goes on the pitch at the end of the season at the Emirates. The fans are feeling it. Then last year, how they let Liverpool win the league, that was a massive opportunity. Man City were falling by the wayside. And the fact that Arsenal didn't get it done last year, to me, I was quite surprised. Because Liverpool, everyone's saying, no one's playing well. Fair play to Liverpool. They got the job done. But I think it has to be this season. Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, they have to. There can't be any more excuses. They brought in a number 9 now. And they have to win the league. That's what has to happen.
But interestingly, you can tell that the club back him, right, Crook, because of the way they've invested in the playing staff. If they didn't believe in the Arteta project and they didn't trust the process, to coin a phrase, then they wouldn't have given them all the weaponry they have.
No, absolutely. And also the change of sporting director, Edu going to link up with Evangelos Marinakis and Andrea Berta coming in. That was heavily led by Arteta as well, because I think he felt last summer maybe the recruitment wasn't quite good enough to get Arsenal where they wanted to be. He wanted more of a say on who they signed, and these arrivals this summer have got his fingerprints all over them. So I do agree with what Lianne is saying, though. The time for excuses is over now. You can't spend as much money as Arsenal have, and they are the biggest net spenders in the Premier League this season, despite the fact that Liverpool have broken the British transfer record once, might do it again. You can't come up short again. So I think he's got to deliver something tangible. But the Arsenal fans I speak to, a lot of them have a different opinion. They don't care if they finish second again. They maintain, and Perry Groves is one of them, that when Arteta came in, Arsenal were irrelevant. They weren't making any kind of impact on the football landscape, and clearly that isn't the case anymore.
I've been saying that to you for ages, and you've just been ignoring me because you hate Arteta. You're just you're anti-Arteta.
I don't hate anybody.
He's got better Lego hair than you.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Who would have thought, by the way, that anyone could fall out with Edu? That hasn't happened recently. What about Manchester City? Once Rodri is back, Lianne, and City gets settled on a goalkeeper, they'll be fine, won't they? Will they?
I mean, I thought that last season, when they were going through that, spell, and I think we all thought they'd kind of kick-start, because it's Man City, we always think they'd find a way, and then they kind of didn't. I think, the signings they've made in Mamouche and Cherki, I think they're good signings. But I just think like the wheels seem to have fallen off a little bit. Now we know Rodri's not 100% fit. When he plays, they win the game historically. Phil Foden came off the bench. Haaland didn't have his best game, but Tottenham do go to the Etihad and always get a result. So there is that in it. But I still think they're a top side. But I just think, they just don't seem to have that fear factor, Sam, that they used to have for some reason. They're still a top side, no doubt in that. But they just don't seem to have that fear factor they used to have. And Tottenham seemed to, they were brilliant at the weekend. No denying that. Tottenham were really, really good, I thought. But
you're not saying they're going to be title contenders, though, are you?
I'm not saying they are, but I like Thomas Frank. I really do. I'm glad that he's got off to a decent start, and I think going there with the confidence, getting that result. Yeah, I like Thomas Frank a lot, and I'm glad it's working out for him. But Tottenham, this happened a few years ago. Under Mourinho, they were top of the league. Everyone's saying, oh, yeah, we're doing well. And then, they fall by the wayside. But I think they look good. They look more stable. Thomas Frank seems to have been able to imprint his style in a short space of time. He's a likeable guy, but he needs to keep delivering. Otherwise, that likability goes out the window.
City's 11-match unbeaten run did come to an end, though, and I did think Tottenham were really good at the weekend. I thought Polinia, Pat Matterface in particular, absolutely terrific in that game. The pressing, the coordination, the ball recoveries, the energy they expended was terrific. I mean, doing that week in, week out is going to be difficult because it requires high intensity and a lot of energy to be able to play at that sort of level. But I do think that there is certainly a more sort of solid tactical framework under Thomas Frank than there was under Ange Postecoglou. And everyone keeps saying, but don't get too carried away about Tottenham because they were top of the league under Ange Postecoglou and they had a brilliant first 10 games of the season a couple of years ago. Go back and have a look at who they played during that first 10 games of the season. It wasn't exactly stellar opposition. So far this season, they've only beaten Burnley, yes, and they've got 3 points away at Manchester City. There's going to be tougher tests to come, but it's a good start. I think the performance against PSG as well sort of gives you an indication that this is a team that are going to be more solid, difficult to beat, more so than they were last season. Right, okay, just a quick word on the goalkeeper situation at Manchester City, Crook. It's mad for me. You buy James Trafford, you put him in, he makes a mistake, everyone thinks, well, he's got to take him out now. Ederson's sitting on the bench, doesn't know whether he's going to be in Turkish football or whether he's going to be English football, and everyone's still talking about Donnarumma. What's happening?
Yeah, I don't think that's an ideal situation for either of the two keepers that are there for the back line, who obviously need to know which keeper they're going to be playing in front of week in, week out. I think the Donnarumma one is literally just an opportunity in the market that maybe City didn't see coming up. I don't think any of us expected that after that Champions League final win that PSG would be so ruthless in dispensing with a goalkeeper who played such a big part in finally getting their hands on the trophy they crave above all others, but clearly is available. Touching base with sources close to Donnarumma at the weekend, they were suggesting that PSG's asking price is on the high side for Manchester City, so I think it will need to come down, but it's certainly a move that they're keeping open. And what does that mean for James Trafford? I think Ederson would go if Donnarumma came in. He would go to Galatasaray. He's got a big offer from them. But it's hard for Trafford, isn't it? Because he turned down Newcastle, where I think he would have gone in as number one. Could have stayed at Burnley as their number one. Went to Manchester City, has been given the number one position, and now might risk losing it 2 games into the season.
Okay, let's have a look at the other end of the table now and start on Friday night. And the Rocky Potter Horror Show. Well, 2 clubs united in pain, West Ham and Manchester United, who haven't really started the season yet. Let's start in London. Graham Potter's got a PR problem, a fan problem, a midfield problem and a results problem. 5 wins in 20 Premier League games. Can he solve them all, Crook?
Difficult. I think he will say that he's being hampered by poor recruitment in the past. That means there's not much budget there. They had to sell Mohamed Kudus to give him some funds to bring in the players that he wanted. One of those was the goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen. Obviously, the board were going in a different direction with John Victor from Botafogo. At the moment, Hermansen's not been great in his first 2 games, but it is only 2 games into the season. There's interest from Tottenham in Lucas Paquetá. I've written about that in my notebook on the talkSPORT website today. I don't think West Ham are inclined to sell him because that would be another big attacking weapon that Graham Potter doesn't have at his disposal. But it's 5 wins in 20 Premier League games ultimately, which is a similar record to Julian Lopetegui's when he was fired. I was told coming into the season that David Sullivan already was having some reservations, despite what Karen Brady said publicly on talkSPORT a couple of weeks ago, the interview that Graham Potter, by his own admission, didn't listen to. Not sure how that would have gone down in the corridors of power. And I think they've got 2 big games this week, Wolves in the Cup, and then they go to Forest, which, assuming there's no drama at Forest in the dugout, that is a game that it's hard to make a case for West Ham winning. And then we've got the international break. I think he's on dodgy ground.
That's a big assumption, by the way. There'll be no drama at Nottingham Forest. The business that West Ham have done has not set the world alight, Lianne. I mean, and there is finger pointing from Graham, as Crook has already said. They've let Alvarez go on loan to Fenerbahce in the last couple of days. 2 summers ago, they spent 35 million quid on this fella. He has been ineffective. He's made no impact at all at West Ham United. Now they've shipped him out on loan. If anything says bad recruitment, this is the pure example. And when you're working in those sort of circumstances, and there's a history of that, I mean, has he got an excuse, actually, because of what has happened previously, because of the playing squad that he's inherited? Or is this a little bit on him as well?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think, look at him at Chelsea. I mean, you can't blame the squad that he had at Chelsea. I think he's on borrowed time. You know, I agree with Crookie. I honestly think sometimes, I know the West Ham fans didn't like the way they played under David Moyes. I know they won the Europa Conference League, but sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. Fulkrug as well going there wasn't a great signing. Hasn't really done bits at all. So I do think the squad, but is Graham Potter getting the best out of these individuals? I don't think so. Souček's been poor. Max Kilman, since he got there, hasn't really done much. There'll probably be, I know Jared Bowen's like West Ham through and through, but he's not going to stay there. He could go anywhere and play, really. Do you know what I mean? I know he loves the club and all that, but like, he's not really. And I think this will start to affect his England selection, to be honest. So I think they've been poor. I think the first game of the season at Sunderland away, like, those are the games where, that is where you kind of, and you can just see Graham Potter, it just seems to be imploding already 2 weeks into the season, doesn't it? So I'll be very surprised if he's here. I genuinely think this time next month, I can't see Graham Potter being there. And
it's interesting because a lot of people say that's a knee-jerk reaction. I think in this case it isn't. I think actually they look back at last season. You're Graham Potter, you're a project manager. So actually you've got the perfect sort of circumstance. You come in January, the season's already over. The first game you play is Aston Villa away. They actually did quite well in that game, but lost it. They were out of the FA Cup. At the moment they go out of the FA Cup, they ain't getting relegated. They ain't getting European football. He has got 6 months of basically nothing football with no pressure riding on it whatsoever to shape his squad, to get them playing in the way that he wants them to play so that they can come into this new season hot. Now, if he is this project manager that's got this great global overview of how he wants to play the game, surely 6 months is enough time to be able to impart his ways on that group of players. If he can't do that, I'm afraid it's not going to work in the Premier League for you, Graham, because you do not get that time anywhere else. The fact that you got that time in the first place is a major gift to you. That isn't going to happen anywhere else. So the fact that he's had it and it still hasn't worked, and then you go to Sunderland, who are a newly promoted club, and you are abject, really, especially in the second half. It's unacceptable, isn't it? And actually, then you look at the Chelsea performance. Right, okay, people say they started well. Did they? They scored a worldy goal, which really Sanchez probably should have stopped. Apart from that, Chelsea looked like the stronger team right from the very off to me. And usually those games are quite grudge-matchy. They're quite sort of difficult to call. West Ham have got a relatively good record against Chelsea at home. But they were so far off the pace, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and you're right. I think definite question marks over the goalkeeper. But it was the manner of the goals that were conceded. I've spoken to a couple of former Premier League managers watching that game, and they were suggesting, that West Ham were a team who just weren't doing the basics. Just head the ball away. You look at the number of crosses they didn't compete or win in their own penalty area. And I do think, as well as having a lack of legs, there's also a lack of effort and energy amongst a lot of that West Ham team. It doesn't strike to me as a group of players who are playing for their manager, and that should be a concern for Graham Potter.
We were in the studio with Martin O'Neill on Monday and he was absolutely seething. He was almost frothing at the mouth at Jean-Claire Todibo. He said, how is this guy playing in the Premier League? He was bad last season when he was on loan. How did they end up pushing the button on a permanent transfer? I think it was because it was an obligation to buy and they were sort of hemmed into a corner. But I think the quote was, he hasn't got a defensive instinct in his body. He was angry about it because I think one of the things that sort of really irritates professionals, especially managers, is that when you can watch a team and you can see that everybody's not fighting for the cause, you don't have a chance in the Premier League if everybody's not pulling in the same direction. And clearly West Ham at the moment aren't pulling in the same direction. They're pulling in all different directions. And that, I think, has sort of spilled into the dressing room and it's spilled into the culture of the club. And you've got the fans who are upset, quite rightly. You've got the manager who's not happy with the recruitment. You've got the board that are at different purposes and who thinks that he should still be there and who doesn't. They come out publicly and say that they want to make a good environment for him, but I'm not necessarily sure it's going to end in smiles and cuddles, I'm afraid. Probably tears are more likely. Any tears this weekend for Manchester United fans? Are they quietly concerned too? The opening day optimism punctured by a shapeless second half at Craven Cottage, Lianne?
I mean, to be honest, Sam, like I was tweeting about it on X last week. Like I don't come from this place like we played well. We still lost the game, you know. And a lot of Man United fans were saying to me, "Oh, we don't." I said we should have been. The point I was making, we should be going in for players like Mark Guehi, Kudus, and Eza. Those are the types of players. I don't care if we've already got players in that position. Look at when Man City historically have won the league time and time again. 2 or 3 players in every position. At the same time, we're recruiting players like Mbeumo and like not putting him in his position. Like they are top players. I like Mbeumo. I like Cunha. But I just think like playing his 3 at the back. Like me and Crookie sound like a stuck record. Like every show we do, we say the same things. I like Ruben. But at the same time, if this is happening 10 games in, I don't come from a place where you have to keep sacking the manager, but like, we're still short, Sam. Dorgu, Dallo, I'm sorry, Mason Mount, like, love the guy, but he's not good enough. He isn't. And these Man United fans saying, oh, you know, he's good. What other team would these players get in? If we're going to challenge De Ligt, I like him, but is he going to win you a Premier League? No. Players like Mark Guehi, why are we not going in for him, Crookie? Like, you can see I've got steam coming out my ears, but like, I don't get it. Like, according to some Man United fans, we're okay. We've signed Cunha and Mbeumo, we've kept Bruno, playing Bruno completely out of position. Like, I don't understand all this. So there's times on our Thursday show, me and Hugh, we butt heads because I like Ruben. Hugh says he should change his tactics to fit the players, all that. Okay. Common denominator, I say, is always these players. But we haven't won a game yet. Against Fulham, I mean, that's poor. Fulham haven't even, like, signed any players. And De Ligt lets it go past him on the front post. Like, what is this type of defending? Like, so honestly, if we're still in this position, like 10 games in, the questions will come for Ruben, unfortunately. I think they already are.
You can't keep changing the manager. Even Marcus Rashford keeps telling you can't keep starting again because you've got to have a clear plan going forward. I suppose the question is it the right plan? Because, I mean, you two are very vocal United devotees here with your mate Ruben, not Amarin. They call him Ruben because, you know, they're secret buddies. It was the quality of the players beforehand, then it was the facilities, then it was the attitude, then it was the culture, then it was the owners. It was all holding Manchester United back. The excuses have got to stop. You've got new players, new training ground, new owner. What's the problem now?
Well, the excuses have to stop because this is a manager who's had an incredible amount of backing, not just from the terraces, but from his paymasters. He's been allowed to spend more than £200 million this summer at a time when Sir Jim Ratcliffe was claiming the club were on the brink of running out of cash completely by the end of the year. And he's taken fewer points than he's managed games. 28 points from 29 Premier League games is not good enough. And I did come away from Craven Cottage worrying about his lack of in-game versatility and flexibility because there was a stage in the second half, and I keep bleating on about this, Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes were the 2 number 6s. They're just not equipped to play in that position. And then we broke the story on Monday morning and it's caused massive uproar from the Manchester United fan base that Kobbie Mainoo on the back of that is considering his future at the club. That would be a really bad look on Ruben Amorim. This is an academy product. For me, a very, very talented footballer. He showed it, not least in the FA Cup final. But he's part of the DNA. This is what Manchester United is built on. Young players coming into the team and making a place in the first 11 their own. He's not being given that opportunity. And when Ruben Amorim comes out and says, well, he's competing with Bruno Fernandes to play in that position, that's nonsense, because Bruno Fernandes is not a number 6. And you're in a situation here. It's like Sven-Göran Eriksson all over again. You're trying to shoehorn Lampard, Gerrard and Scholes into the same team. It doesn't work. Ruben Amorim's got to be brave and take someone out the team. Be it Mbeumo, it can't be Cunha because he's been brilliant, or be it Bruno Fernandes. Get someone who's actually a specialist in that position in a really key part of the team. And Patrick Dorgu, by the way, not good enough. Never been good enough, never will be good enough.
Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Erik ten Hag was well thought of when he joined. Ralf Rangnick was a man who revolutionised German football. Now Ruben Amorim, who was a precocious young talent and a title winner who restored the fortunes of Sporting Lisbon. Is Old Trafford the place where good managers go to die, Lianne?
Well, it seems like a place where players do as well, to be honest, because Bruno's been the only real signing that's made a difference. I tweeted about Dorgu like as soon as he got there. Problem is, right, we go for players that nobody else seems to want. And the fact that we have started this season with Altay in goal just about epitomises for me. I said it ages ago. We should have got Aaron Ramsdale. I'm not saying Aaron Ramsdale is a world-class goalkeeper, but 2 years ago he was goalkeeper of the year, apart from when David Raya come in there. Get Ramsdale, then we'll find someone else. Maybe he does a good job. But starting with Altay in there, starting the first game of the season, yes, he makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. But the fact that it was him just kind of epitomises it a little bit more, makes it that much worse. The fact, what Crookie said as well about Kobbie Mainoo, like, blows my mind, because I agree. Like, the fact that Casemiro, don't get me wrong, Casemiro looks fantastic. Last year came in, done a good job. But he's not the future. We're playing Ahmad at wing-back as well, when he's probably arguably one of our best attacking players. Like, just tactically. Do you know the time I questioned Ruben's tactics was against Leon, Crookie, last year when we did the game, Europa League, and he put Kobbie Mainoo on in the 9. Yes, we won the game, but at the same time, we got quite lucky in the end. Harry Maguire then goes up top, saves the day. He's doing it again, Harry Maguire, going all the way up top again. Like, are we really, really going back to these type of tactics? So, again, I agree with what Sam said. You can't keep sacking the managers all the time. But all this whole training ground stuff, yes, it's great we've got a new training ground, but ultimately, we have to win games. You know, we can't blame, leaking roofs, training grounds. When you're a footballer, you play for pride. But I still don't think we have good enough players. Yes, we've signed some good players. Shesko, yes, he's a good player, but still unproven in the Premier League. So we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, the fact that you've had a go at Altay is baffling to me, because you created one big chance in the game against Fulham and he created it with a massive punt downfield. I mean, that seems to be your only way that you're going to score goals nowadays. I can't believe that this is a team that have spent this much money on forward talent yet can't score a goal. The only goal that they've scored so far is an own goal. It's frustrating. As someone who watches them a lot, obviously I go there a lot, you know that, Lianne. I can't believe that last season they scored 44 Premier League goals. That is ridiculous. It's so low. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to limbo under records. What on earth is going on? Why can't they score goals? Why can't they create to score goals? They've got Mason Mount, who, despite you two having a go at him, actually is a very talented player. Managers absolutely love this guy, and there's a reason for that. He works hard, he leads the press, he creates, he's got ability. You've got Bruno Fernandes, you've got Matthias Cunha, you've got Mbeumo. These players between them have scored a lot of goals over the course of their career. Why can't they score them for Manchester United? It's frustrating even for a neutral. I mean, obviously you two are sort of, pulling every hair you've got out, but like, it is frustrating to watch.
It is, and I still think there's a mentality issue. I asked Ruben after the game, is this a team that's forgotten how to win matches? Because they were very good for the first sort of 20 minutes against Fulham. It looked like they might blow them away. They've hit the post with Cunha. If that goes in, the floodgates might open. But they never recovered from Bruno Fernandes missing that penalty. That just seemed to completely suck the life out of the team. And that can't be happening. That's a manager's job to instill confidence and belief. And do you know what? This is a massive week. You're going to be up in Cleethorpes. Grimsby away in the Cup is a massive banana skin. And we're going into that game as Manchester United fans thinking, well, do you know what? This could be difficult. And we shouldn't be thinking that. And then it's Burnley at home in the Premier League at the weekend. Now, if you can't beat Burnley at home and beat them well, having spent 200 million quid on strikers, then all the hallmarks are there that this is going to be another very long season.
You don't really worry about Grimsby and Burnley.
I worry a lot more than I used to
Yeah.
about these kind of fixtures.
I agree with that.
Lianne, I mean, obviously there's a lot of work still to be done there, and it's not going to turn around in the first few games of the season, but it is only the first few games of the season. I wonder whether or not you still think, or you think that they'll finish. Where do you think they'll finish? I want to put words into your mouth. Where do you think they're going to finish?
Remember, I did the show with you guys last year, the preview show, and I said we'd finish top 4. I'm still a bit delusional with Man United.
They finished bottom 4, didn't they?
I know. And
No,
it's
not
always
quite.
said to me, top 10 will be a success. It's hard for me as a Man United fan, right, to accept that. But I think at this moment in time, I think we're going to finish around 8th. Genuinely. I don't see what everyone else is seeing. I really don't. I'm not saying every Man United fan, but like after that first game against Arsenal, everyone's acting like, we're going to make the top 4 and we've turned the corner. Still not seeing it. I like Lenny Euro on a positive note because I'm mindful I've not said anything positive about Man United.
You haven't said anything positive. Although saying that, 8th position would be positive. I think 8th would be brilliant for you.
Well, progression from last year, but still not good enough, is it really? I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I just think we're still underhand on the bench. I still don't think we've got strength in depth. And I just think if we're really trying to challenge, like this whole, our squad's all right, like it's not. It's nowhere near it. And Sam, to be honest, I have to disagree with you with Mason Mount. Like, if we are trying to win things, Mason Mount, yes, he works hard, but he's not quality. He's not quality.
How many Champions League winners have you got in your squad?
Yeah, I mean, I know Mason Mount's won the Champions League, but the point is, at this moment
So
in
did
time,
Jimmy Traore, by the way.
what other team is... what other top 10 team is Mason Mount really going to get in? I know managers love him, but I've played with players that managers love. And it's not always because of their ability. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes if your face fits, I get that. But at the same time, like, these players, some of them are still not at the level. But we should be doing better. And Wermo needs to be a bit wider like he was at Brentford. I mean, I'm not a manager, right? It's easy to sit here and give my opinion of what we should do. But if we was to lose Kobbie Mainoo, like what Crookie said, that will be... Man United fans will feel a bit sick to the stomach if that happens, I think.
Lianne Sanderson, always popular with managers, joining us on the podcast this week. Crookie, never popular with managers, always here on the Premier League All Access podcast. We'll be back on Thursday to preview all of the weekend's action, by which point Manchester United would have gone out of the Carabao Cup to Grimsby in the greatest shocking League Cup history. No, I'm only joking. They'll definitely win. Stop worrying, you two. I think you're being a little bit melodramatic. You're being a bit Bruno. Oh, he bumped me. I can't take a penalty. It's all going to be okay. Don't worry. Trust in the process of Amorim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Lianne, thank you. Love that. That was great fun.
Thanks, guys.
Crookie, always great to see you. We'll see you on Thursday. We're back together Friday as well for the big show on Friday, previewing the weekend. And of course, we've got live commentaries Tuesday and Wednesday night from the Carabao Cup. And over the weekend, we've got some humdingers for you. Saturday, the world champions take on Fulham. Did you hear that, boys and girls? The world champions take on Fulham at 12:30. And then Sunday, we go to Liverpool Arsenal for Game Day Live. We're looking forward to that. Stick with us, it's talkSPORT.